this champion, whose panache had no equal, perhaps only found a successor worthy of the name 3 decades later, in the shape of another small man with a similar attitude, fired by the same determination and spirit, the Canadian Gilles Villeneuve, who drove for Ferrari from 1978 to 1982. It was a meteoric but unforgettable career.
Di Gilles non si possa dire niente di più di quello che ha fatto vedere a tutti. Era molto generoso, un uomo di grande talento naturale e di grande coraggio, molto semplice, sempre all'attacco, anche quando doveva girare per strada per andare a prendere il gelato, andava forte, faceva i testacoda, si divertiva. Principalmente si divertiva a fare il pilota.
Villeneuve's temperament was well known.
Io penso che per gli episodi che lui ha saputo far vedere agli altri, Gilles sia già un pilota di leggenda. Io voglio ricordare l'episodio, lo chiamavano il pilota volante, perché ha fatto un mare di incidenti all'inizio quando imparava. L'episodio di Zandvoort quando è rientrato al box su 3 ruote. Non era un pilota che si era costruito, un pilota così, naturale, era veloce, con qualsiasi tipo di macchina in qualsiasi situazione.
The most famous race in Villeneuve's sparkling career was his incredible wheel-to-wheel, and we mean sometimes wheel-against-wheel, battle with René Arnoux in the closing laps of the 1979 French Grand Prix at Dijon. This was a fight to the flag, both drivers desperate to beat the other. For second place, remember, and doing all that they could while staying just within the boundaries of sport and safety. It was a duel etched in the memories of all those who saw it, one of Formula One's greatest battles, legendary. In the early 60s came another legend, a man whose speed and perfection had his rivals and spectators alike gasping in admiration, Jim Clark. Clark was a driver of class. The way he came alive in a racing car, particularly at the start of a race, was symbolic of his career, meteoric.
Jim Clark was first and foremost a Scottish farmer. He really wasn't made to be a racing driver. He was introverted, he was shy, he was really a man who felt more at home on his farm, on his land, with his sheep and with his farm workers and fellow Scots.
But Clark was one of those lucky sportsmen who possessed unique natural talent. All he needed was the catalyst to draw it out of him. And that catalyst was Colin Chapman, the man behind Lotus. Together, they performed miracles. From an apprenticeship in Formula Junior, Clark went on to be the first great Formula One champion of what was then the dawning age of rear-engined cars. He outclassed his rivals with serene confidence. Throughout his career, he would remain a Lotus driver and dominated the 1963 and then 1965 World Championships.
Jim Clark was the best racing driver I ever raced against. He was so smooth, so precise. He did it so naturally. He seemed to take so little out of his car. He always seemed to be going slowly, and yet he was going very fast. If there's a driver that I modelled myself on, it would be Jim Clark.
During his relatively short but brilliant Formula One career, Jim Clark established several remarkable records which stood for many years before being either equalled or broken. He won 25 Grand Prix, one more than Fangio. started from pole 33 times, a record only beaten by Senna a quarter of a century later. And 7 of Clark's poles were in one season, when there were only 10 races in total. Remember, it was to Lotus and Jim Clark that Ford would entrust their new Cosworth DFV V8, and Clark won with it first time out at Zandvoort in 1967. The shape of contemporary Grand Prix cars during Clark's heyday somehow seemed to match his own speed and style, particularly on the ultra-fast circuits where precision was all important. He was a master of Spa, even though he hated the place, where his 1964 race average was nearly 133 mph in a 1.5-litre car. 4 times he won in Belgium from 1962 to 1965. He was a 4-time winner in England too. Clark finished the 1967 season on a high with 2 consecutive victories in America and Mexico. The Clark, Chapman, Duckworth trio seemed invincible, a driver with style and 2 geniuses providing his equipment. Who could rival it? They seemed set for a lengthy reign, even if the driver was indicating that he would like to retire and return to his farm in Scotland. The 1967 title had gone to Denny Hulme, but there seemed every likelihood that a 3rd world title would come Clark's way. Sadly, this was not to be. On a miserable April afternoon at the perilous Hockenheim in 1968, Clark was driving in an unrewarding Formula 2 race. For no traceable reason, although probably technical, his Lotus left the road at high speed and disappeared into the unprotected forest. There, an artist perished.